In this demo, we'll look into how we can replace the built-in logger and log to a file. The built-in logger is fine, but some people prefer third-party loggers, often because they offer additional features. One of these is logging to a database or file. ASP.NET Core out of the box doesn't contain those. It does contain one for logging to the event log, but that's a Windows-only concept. Seeing that ASP.NET Core apps often run in Linux containers, that might not be the route you want to take. So, how do we log to, for example, a file? Well, the built-in logging system was built in a way that allows third-party providers to easily integrate with it. Lots of providers exist, like providers for Logger, Elma, Serilog, and so on. In this demo, we will replace the built-in logger with a more full-featured one that supports logging to a file, Serilog. For that, we need to add a NuGet package, serilog.asp.NET-Core. We get to that by right-clicking our project file and choosing the Manage NuGet Packages option. Here, we want to search for serilog.asp.NET-Core. To install it, we click the package we want and we click Install. Let's click OK. Let's accept. And there we go. That took care of that. We also want to install two sinks packages. In Serilog lingo, a sink is a location to which it will log. We want to log to the console and to a file. So we want to add those two sinks. We can use the NuGet Package Manager for that, but there's another option. Using the Package Manager console. If you don't see it in your IDE, you can search for it. And here it is. To install a NuGet package, we can use the install package command. We pass through the name of the package we want to install. So, serilog.sinks.file is the first one. And serilog.sinks.console is the second one. There we go. That took care of that. Now let's open the program file. The first thing we want to do here is configure Serilog. We do that by setting log.logger to a new logger configuration. Log is defined in the Serilog namespace, so let's add a using statement. There we go. So we set it to a new logger configuration. That's also from the Serilog namespace. And on that, we can configure logging. There's a large set of configuration-related methods we can use here. Let's look into a few. First, we can set the minimum log level to a certain level. Let's say debug. After that, we state where we want to log to. In our case, we want to log to the console window. That's very convenient during development. But we also want to log to a file. For that, we call into write_to.file. That accepts a location to log to. Let's say we want to log to a cityinfo.txt file in a logs subdirectory. And we want to set the rolling interval to a day. Like that, a new log file will be created every day. With that, the logger configuration is set up. The last thing we want to do is create the logger. For that, we call into create logger. And there we go. Like this, Serilog is configured. All we need to do now is tell ASP.NET Core that it should use Serilog instead of the built-in logger. To enable that, we call into builder.host.use_Serilog. The old code from the previous demos, clear providers and add console, can now be removed as we just replace those by Serilog. For reference, I'll comment them out instead of effectively removing them. Alright, let's give that a try. And let's have a look at the console window. There we go. We see a lot of information being logged to the console window, and we also notice that the way these messages are logged looks a bit different from before. This is Serilog at work. What we also expect is to see these logs in a file. So let's open the directory our application is running from. In my case, that's the logs folder in the cityinfo.api root. This was automatically created. And here we find a cityinfo.txt file which is appended with the current date. That automatically happens thanks to the fact that we set the rolling interval to rolling interval.day. And if we have a look at the contents of this file, we see that it indeed contains the same messages as were logged to the console window. The nice thing about the fact that these third-party providers integrate with the built-in logging system is that we don't have to change any other parts of our code. We already have the code to log in our points of interest controller, and that same code will keep on working. Now using Serilog to log. Let's give that a try by requesting the points of interest for the city again, which will throw an exception, which should be logged. We get back a 500 internal server error, so far so good. And we indeed see an exception being logged. And with that, we know how to use an external logging provider and log to a file. Let's get rid of that exception we're throwing. That was just for demo purposes. There we go. We now know how to use a built-in service, but we can also create our own services. Let's have a look at that.